WRCR, good morning.
Good morning. Tina Traster here, Rockland County Business
Yes,
Journal.
ma'am. What do you got for us?
History was made this week in Rockland County. The small village of South Nyack voted by an over 60% margin to dissolve its 142-year-old government and become part of the town of Orangetown. And within hours of that decision, the Nyack College sale closed and was sold to the Yeshivas Vizhnitz group, a Hasidic congregation, for $45.5 million. Of course, the two events were completely intricately related. The people of South Nyack started out with a petition back in August to dissolve the village, and while there was some pretense that some of that had to do with looking at the financial logistics of how the village was running, and that's legitimate, and I think it was a legitimate part of the process. The real driver for this decision came from the fear over the potential future of the 107-acre campus, meaning that the yeshiva has stated that it plans to bring some 500 students to the campus, but there is still much uncertainty as to whether there will be future development there, whether there will be permanent housing, and whether this will change would have changed the voting configuration, whether this voting block would shift the priorities for the village as a whole. The village only has less than 2,000 registered voters. Ultimately, what it came down to was the fear over if this community comes to the Nyack College, and unlike its predecessor that lived on the college campus but did not expand it and did not, I guess, alter the character of the community with voting, what have you. This really came down to the fear of, if it comes to having to press a land use lawsuit, who would be in a better position to pay for that? And the question turned on, would that be, small South Nyack or the town of Orangetown, whose budget is, I think, at least 10 times bigger? So there was a lot of, in the days leading up, the consultant, that CGR of Rochester, who the village had hired to, look at all of the logistics, had gone through, everything with regard to everything from taxes to leaf pickup and recycles and how it would work in terms of the police force and other civil servants. But the most striking thing, I think, was when one resident said that, the village hired this consultant to spell out what the dissolution would look like financially and logistically, but it did not address the, quote, 800-pound gorilla. What he was really saying was that people wanted to have an understanding of, what this new occupant of Nyack College would mean for the village and potentially for a lawsuit down the road. And these were not questions that were studied. These were not questions that were answered. And so I think in the end of the day, apart from the incentive of potentially saving $2,000 a year on an average property tax bill, which is not a small amount, I don't know if that alone would have been, but let's say that the Nyack College was not in play here. Would the persuasion of $2,000 annually have been enough for people to, give up the sense of I don't know, ownership or community or heritage that they have around their village. It's an interesting question, but that's not the question that was on the table.
Do you think the fear of what Nyack College could become, based on the owners that it now has, is a legitimate vote or concern that they should have been voting on?
Well, I think that nobody ever, it was not publicly stated that that's why the village was, being given the option to dissolve. But clearly...
No, but some people have said that, and some people have thought about that. But do you think that's a legitimate concern?
I think that the concern is as follows. I think that the campus has 107 acres, that the Vishnitz community bought this campus for a song, $45 million, half of what it really had been originally marketed for. I think that there is the fear that with all of that land, that certainly there could be very wide-scale development, and that the residents could outnumber the small village in its population, and that ultimately, that the interests of that community may fly in the face of the interests of South Nyack. And what ultimately they were concerned about is, even though the land up there is zoned single-family home, R15, if they came to the zoning board with the request for variance, and let's say they were denied those requests, what history has shown, particularly here in Ramapo, is that oftentimes what we see is this goes to a RLUIPA lawsuit, and that ultimately could certainly have bankrupted the community, the village, and I think that enough people understood that. The vote, like I said, was ultimately over 60% in favor of dissolution. So that is the heart of what I think people were out there voting for. And the problem is that it really is an unknown, because the closing just took place last week. They are not forthcoming about their true plans. There certainly have been developers attached to this project at various points. It remains uncertain now what goes forward. So it's unfortunate. Now, the village does have one trap door, which is that once they have up until 2 years to dissolve, and the village officials have to come up with a plan, and there's a second bite at the apple to residents would need signatures of 25% of eligible voters to have a second referendum. So they can buy time, but the clock starts now. And that means that the dissolution process starts to take place right now, and so village resources will be used to start looking at what it means to dissolve. They'll probably have to hire the consultant back again, who will start undertaking the different pieces of this. So it's everything sort of I would say it's not resolved. I would say there's a lot of uncertainty, and it's probably. I think, one of the things I got from, the Facebook response was that even those who, let's say, got what they wanted, I don't think that this was a joyful sort of victory in winning this. So, yeah, very, very complicated, very history-making, and I think that all parts of Rockland will be watching, how this plays out. Certainly we will. So... just on another front, I wanted to say that we have started up a real estate mart, and that if people are looking, commercial people, real estate people are looking, or businesses are looking for a store, office, warehouse, or commercial space, we have a new searchable desktop commercial real estate listings page on Rockland County Business Journal. So another new feature for our community.
And in order to access all this, it's all strictly online, correct?
RC Biz Journal.
rcbizjournal.com. And thank you very much. Have a wonderful holiday, and we'll talk to you next week.
Sounds good.
Thanks, Tina.
Tina Traster here, WRC.